Well, it's been quite a while since I did a video, and I want to show you guys a little project I've been working on. I've been doing quite a bit of reloading this year. There's around 10,000 spent primers I've saved up. Don't know what I'm going to do with them. I think I'll just start saving all of my spent primers from now on, just kind of like a record of how many rounds I've reloaded. And of course everything's done on a Hornady single-stage press. But the project today is reloading some gallery-type Plinking ammo for 7.62x54R. I've done the same thing with 3040 Krag and it works just fine. I've done the same thing with 30.6 and it works just fine. But today I'm going to show you the process for 7.62x54. So let's get into it. The idea behind the project is that since I live in Western Washington, we don't exactly have a lot of places to shoot rifles here past 100 yards or so. And it's really kind of just a waste of powder and good bullets to shoot at 100 yards. And even the spots where we can shoot at 100 yards, it's hard to get there, and shooting at a private range is expensive. So shooting here on my own property, I can get out to 35 yards. And we don't need full power rifle ammo to target practice at 35 yards. So shooting a 170 grain cast bullet at a subsonic velocity is really all we need to do to keep up on marksmanship. As far as equipment and components go for making this gallery ammo, we're going to have our supply of brass cases that were originally full power rifle loads that were just fired once. These are a mix of PPU and herders. And we're going to be using a Lee die set as well as a Lyman MDie, a neck expanding die. And this Lee die set has had the decapping pin changed out for one that sizes at 311 diameter. As some of you may know, the 7.62x54 shoots bullets of anywhere from a 310 to 314 diameter. And the 308 decapping pin that comes in the Lee die set doesn't expand the neck enough to actually accept a bullet for the correct diameter. So that's something you're going to have to change out if you haven't already in your Lee die set. The M die, it can be used for most 30 caliber cases, anywhere from 3040 Krag, 7.62x54, 308, 30.6, and all this does is expands the neck just a little bit more so you can get cast bullets started in there and not shave lead. And then we're also going to be using the factory crimp die that came with the Lee die set. For primers, powder, and bullets, we're going to be using some CCI standard large rifle primers. And I picked up some of these 170 grain 310 diameter cast bullets from Cabela's. And these are about 12 cents a piece, which isn't too bad for pre-cast bullets. Of course, you could cast your own and get them the correct bore diameter, but the 310 ones are just the ones that were off the shelf. And they tend to shoot fine, even in oversized bores. Some of you might freak out a little bit at the powder that we're going to be using. This is TiteGroup. This is a very fast pistol powder, and in very large quantities in rifle cases, your gun will blow up. But with very small charges, there's really nothing to worry about here. We're only going to be using 6 grains in this case, and that's only going to get up to about 15,000 psi, which is very low pressure. So let's get into reloading these things. So we have all these cases laid out here on a bag. We need to lubricate these first before we full length resize them. Just spraying down the case and into the neck. And we're going to try to get both sides of the case. And we're going to let this lube dry here on the cases before we full-length resize them. Okay, our 7.62x54 cases have been lubricated. The lube has dried, and now we can full-length resize them. This action also deprimes the cases, and we will reprime them on the next step. next step now, after all the cases have been full-length resized and deprimed, is to prime them. I'm using the CCI large rifle primers. You could do this on the press if you wanted to. I'm using a hand primer. Okay, once we have our cases primed, the next step is to use this Lyman MDie and expand the neck. The way you set up an MDie is you lower the die until it makes contact with the press ram, and then you're going to take this plunger here and just gently lower it about a quarter turn at a time until your cases are expanded just enough to where they can accept a bullet like this. So this is our case before. You can see the bullet does not fit in, and if you tried seating that bullet using a seating die, you'd shave off a lot of lead and really reduce accuracy. Whereas after the MDie, the neck has been slightly expanded to where a bullet very easily can be seated in the case. So we're going to run all of our cases through the MDie and go on to the next step. The next step in reloading these gallery reloads is probably the most important, and that's charging the case. And like I mentioned before, we're using TiteGroup pistol powder, which is a very fast pistol powder. It's used in 9mm and 45. I use this in most of my pistol loads, but with light charges in rifle cases, it produces low pressures and it makes a good powder for plinking. If you're going to take a rifle powder like Accurate 4064 and reduce the charge, you might get away with it, but there have been a lot of reports of slower powders detonating in larger volume cases. That doesn't happen with fast pistol powders like TiteGroup. Most of the cases I've heard of happen with Magnum pistol powders like H110 and very slow rifle powders like H1000 or H4831. So we're going to charge our cases with 6 grains of TiteGroup. I have tested these cases with 12 grains of TiteGroup, which would be a double charge. The pressures were still low and still safe in my rifles. They may not be in yours, so just stick to 6 grains and you should be good to go in any of the rifle case capacities similar to 308. That would be 3040 Krag, 7.62x54R. These would even work in 30-06. It's up to you to do your own testing and up to you to load these at your own risk. So we're going to finish out these cases. Once you've charged all of your cases, we're going to start seating bullets, and we've picked out these 170 grain 310 diameter cast lead bullets. You cannot use jacketed bullets with these TiteGroup loads because jacketed bullets create much more friction in the bore compared to cast lead, and at the low velocities these are being pushed, there's a very good chance that jacketed bullets will stick in the bore and you'll get a squib. Firing a live round behind a squib will ring your bore and probably ruin your rifle. So we're using cast for this, and this is where cast bullets really excel in reloading. So you don't have to use a bullet seating die for this. You can easily just seat these bullets by hand to just below the first lube groove. Seating depth is not critical. Just seat them like that. Very easy to do. So we'll finish these out and go on to the next step. Okay, the last step in reloading these gallery loads is removing the flare that we made on the neck. This is going to give a little bit more tension on the bullet and make sure that we can actually chamber these rounds in our rifle. We're going to do this with the factory crimp die out of the Lee set, and we're not really going to roll crimp this. All we're doing is ensuring that that little flare that we created is now flat against the rest of the neck. So we're going to do this on the rest of our cartridges and then go shoot them. We have all of our bullets seated in the case now. and they're crimped in place. And just one step left here is to take a rag, just wipe off the excess case lube on the case. Excess lube on brass cases decreases the coefficient of friction between the brass and the chamber of your rifle. This leads to excessive bolt thrust, which can damage weaker actions like the Krag rifle. It's not a great issue in a Mosin Nagant or a Mauser or other strong action, but in Krag rifles, leaving excess lubricant on your brass will significantly decrease the life of your bolt. Okay, we have our gallery loads loaded now. We got 5 rounds in here. The rifle that we're using today is a 1934 Ischef's hex receiver. Shoot 5 rounds and test them for accuracy. Just back at 25 yards here on the pistol range. Okay, they feed, fire just fine. Let's go see how we did. Okay, walking up here, that was just 5 rounds offhand, kind of rapid fire. And, not terrible, about 2.5, 3 inches, 25 yards. I know this one I did pull, but yeah, this load is capable of about 1-inch groups at 25 yards. I could probably do a little better off a bench, but you know, that's plenty good for small game accuracy if you're going to use these out hunting. Let's see if I can puncture this fancy German steel here with these loads. Now this Russian gun. Well, seems it went straight through it, and through this piece of the pallet here, and out the back of the pallet. So these definitely have enough power for small game hunting if you're so inclined. And even though these are reduced power loads, they are still lethal, so treat them as such. Thanks for watching.
All of these factors must be considered as we plan for the survival of our homes, our families, and our nation in the nuclear age.